Thanks for joining us for the Schoolroom podcast. You are one of the artists in Reshaping Collections, the exhibition downstairs. So I wanted to start really more from the beginning so we can all know a little bit more about you. What's it like being an artist, and why did you decide to be an artist?
Okay, what's it like being an artist? I feel like I'm still in the process of learning what it's actually like. I think I started my professional career as an artist in 2020.
During the pandemic.
My last semester at Emily Carr got cut short, and we were kind of just thrown into the deep end. And I was lucky enough to pick up a couple of projects that summer. And so, as of right now, working as an artist has been kind of isolating just because I've been working alone in my bedroom, and then I'll have meetings on Zoom every once in a while, and then it's back to like work in my bedroom. So right now it's a little isolating, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I'm able to do stuff like this and actually like talk to people and like be around other artists too. So this exhibit is quite exciting to be a part of.
And did you always know you wanted to be an artist, or what was the moment that you knew that you were going to be one?
I've always been interested in drawing. I think that's the thing that I think that's one of like the few skills that I've been able to foster consistently my entire life. I didn't know that it was going to be my job, I don't think. I think to me, it was just something that I did on the side with school. I think the moment that I decided to become an artist was when it was time to apply to university in like grade 12. And I was looking at schools and trying to think about what I would be interested in doing. And like art was kind of the only thing that I felt like I could motivate myself to continue practicing and continue pursuing. And I was lucky enough that my parents, being first generation immigrants, allowed me to go to art school. So yeah.
Well, I was going to ask that because I know your family is supportive, just because at the opening of Reshaping Collections, they were all there supporting you.
Yes.
But was that a journey to have their support, or did they know, or did they support always from the beginning?
At first, they were very hesitant to support me. I think there was a lot of kind of nudging going on with my parents. They're like, are you sure this is what you want to pursue? Like, is there anything else you want to try? Are you sure? So much so to the point where I was applying to like UBC for like the forestry program, I think, just to appease my mom and like get her to like relax a little bit, because I knew I wanted to, at that point I knew I wanted to pursue arts and actually make it happen. But yeah.
I just want to say that nudging is actually translating as very supportive for Chinese parents. No, I mean, as a joke. Yeah.
It's fair. Yeah. It's, now that I'm thinking back on it, yeah, they were quite supportive considering how strict they were growing up and how much of an emphasis they put on schooling. So yeah, I think the nudging means they're very, very supportive.
And your parents own the Pink Pearl restaurant in, I guess it's on the edge of Chinatown, you would say. It's definitely a very illustrious old Chinese restaurant. I know this because my parents were married at Pink Pearl. What was it like kind of growing up and having that restaurant in the background as like a Chinese restaurant kid?
So my parents both have worked in the restaurant industry for a very, very long time. They actually met at a restaurant in China prior to moving here. And my mom has had a few jobs here and there, and my dad has been working in the restaurant industry since he could work. And so it's always been a thing in my life. I think one thing about working in restaurants is that it's constantly, especially when you're in a managerial position, it's constantly calling your attention if you're working there. And so we don't kind of hang out in a traditional family sense. I think especially now, both my parents are really consumed with work at the restaurant, so it can be a little bit isolating, kind of lonely, just because they're constantly working. But it's also really wonderful, I think, because we have like a go-to place to get together and like celebrate when there are times to celebrate. And so I think for a large part of my childhood, I kind of took that for granted.
Right.
Just being like being separated from my parents all the time. But now as an adult, I think that place is really, really special. And especially since there was that little scare that we had when I didn't know, or my dad didn't know if the lease on Pink Pearl was going to be renewed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Was that recently?
I think so. That was this year. I didn't think about it too much, about the restaurant very much, until he told me that he didn't know if the lease was going to be renewed. And I think there was a moment where I was like, oh no, this thing in my life is like going to change. I don't know what it means. Him working in restaurants has felt like such a constant kind of pillar in my life that when things were when the restaurant was at stake, I kind of freaked out a little bit and couldn't contend with that reality. But thankfully the lease has been renewed, and so he's going to have the restaurant for sure for another 5 years.
And how has the restaurant, or kind of your parents being in the restaurants, has it influenced your art practice at all? What you draw, what you illustrate?
It's interesting because I used to hate drawing food. I felt like it was so difficult. There's so many textures and colors and like lots of stuff that I found kind of annoying to draw at first. But I think as time has gone on, I've found ways to make it work for me in terms of like technique and stuff, and it makes me think fondly of the restaurant now. So I think I have a growing appreciation for like food illustration in particular. I think my parents working at restaurants also gave me, because me and my sisters were home alone a lot, it gave me a lot of time to like practice and just be by myself and just draw over and over again. Yeah.
What's the most difficult thing to draw food-wise? Is it noodles? Is it rice?
Yeah. Noodles, rice, those kinds of things are difficult just because I have this inclination to draw every single grain in terms of like, I don't know, speed or like efficiency. That's not like the best technique. So those are difficult. I think anything kind of, slippery or like shiny, I have a really hard time with.
And in your artwork, have you always kind of thought about being Chinese Canadian? I know for this commissioned work, it's directly related to the Zheng collection, and so therefore about being Chinese Canadian, but in the past?
I don't think I really thought about my identity and my artwork until university. I think university is when I really started thinking about what I wanted to say. Because up until that point, I was just interested in drawing, really anything, and I didn't have an explicit goal or purpose until that point. It also kind of coincided with my interest in like isometric drawing.
Right.
I took a drawing class, I think in second year, and we just did isometric drawing. It was free from any kind of historical context. We learned it more as like a technique that architects and engineers used. So through art school, I feel like I kind of melded these two interests of mine, which helped create this piece for the exhibit.
And when you were growing up here in Vancouver, did you know about the Zheng collection, or is this the first time?
This is my first time. Learning about this collection, which is amazing. I think one special thing about making artwork about my heritage in this city is that I always find myself learning new stuff. There's always new things to learn about and to hear other people talk about. So that's really exciting to me.
Well, let's go downstairs and see your artwork in the Zheng collection, which actually encompasses many different things, including the Yip family tree behind us that is in the museum. you tell me a little bit about this artwork? I guess start from the beginning. What's your inspiration and what are we looking at?
Okay, so this artwork was basically a response to the Chung collection as a whole. I was tasked to look through Dr. Chung's massive collection and try to pull pieces that I thought were interesting, significant, and compile them into a visually interesting image. This drawing that I made is like a made-up museum space in isometric perspective.
Can you tell me more about what isometric perspective is?
Yeah, so isometric perspective is basically a way of rendering a 3D object, kind of giving it depth, giving it the illusion of depth without actually changing the dimensions very much. So unlike linear perspective, none of the parallel lines in an isometric drawing converge. There's no horizon, there's no convergence point, meaning all of the items in the drawing are laid in one visual plane, in the same visual plane. So it creates this kind of illusion of, it creates like a warping.
Can you maybe give us an example by pointing at the work?
Let's see. So if I were to take out all of the lines that create the building, so like this wall and this plinth and the line where the floors, if I were to take all of those lines out, all of these people would look like they're standing on the same floor.
Right? I see.
If I were to do this in linear perspective, there'd be a lot of scaling I'd have to do. You probably wouldn't be able to see the image in the same way. So some people would look a lot bigger and some people would look a lot smaller depending where I put the viewer's eyes. But yeah, isometric perspective allows me to kind of warp that perspective a little bit. Isometric perspective allows me to do away with a singular focus. I like being able, because the collection is so big, I wanted to showcase kind of everything without assigning importance to one item over another.
Right.
Yeah, I like having a bunch of stuff kind of on the same plane with the same amount of importance. That way I can let the viewer decide how to engage with the work. What they take away with the work is very individual to their own experience.
So I also notice there are a ton of people in here, but they all have their own mannerisms that are different. If we look at, for example, these kids, you've really captured the way maybe kids would behave in a museum. They wouldn't be standing properly. They'd be their limbs would be kind of almost flexible and relaxed. You see this child, she's like holding on to her grandfather's hands because maybe she's tired. And so can you tell me a little bit more about how you imagine all these different ways that people might stand or behave?
Yeah, I wanted to create this space. I wanted to make the space feel like it was very lived in. I wanted it to be really warm and inviting. I think sometimes when we look at history in museums, it can be kind of isolating almost because we're taking stories out of context and trying to, recontextualize them. So I wanted to make a warm, inviting space where people could just hang out and chill and talk to each other and like mingle if they want or just be alone. And I think when I think about being a kid inside spaces like these, all I wanted to do was like run around and like sit down somewhere I wasn't allowed to sit and like, just be a kid.
For sure.
I don't think kids engage with this kind of stuff in a very chill way.
Or the way that adults would.
Yeah, at all. Their learning experience in these type of settings are very different from what an adult looks like. So I wanted to showcase that.
And Where's Waldo? I mean, did you read that book as a kid? And it feels like an inspiration for this work.
Yeah, for sure. I did read Where's Waldo as a kid. I remember really enjoying those books in elementary school. I was lucky enough that Sarah, one of the curators for this exhibit, she lent me, I think 3 different Where's Waldo's books that I could look through. And one of them was in an actual museum. So that was a huge inspiration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And So there's a lot of different people in the exhibition that are actually real people, including Wallace Chung. Can we maybe look to see? So there's Wallace Chung. And how did you imagine him in this museum space when you were drawing him?
Well, because this is his collection, I kind of wanted him to have like a pretty important role. The way that I've illustrated him here is that he's talking in front of a bunch of school kids, telling them his story, telling them about his experience collecting all of these items and kind of what the significance of this exhibit is. And I really wanted to emphasize in this scene in particular, kind of the passing on of knowledge to like younger generations.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for introducing this artwork to us.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast was recorded on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. We invite you all to reflect on the territories that you're on and the host nations, and pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. This Schoolroom Special Series, featuring the artists in Reshaping Collections, was made possible with funding from the City of Vancouver and the Province of British Columbia. To learn more about the Chinese Canadian Museum and book tickets, visit us at www.chinesecanadianmuseum.ca and follow us on Instagram at ccmuseumbc for updates. The Schoolroom is presented by the Chinese Canadian Museum, hosted by Dr. Melissa Carmen Lee, and produced by Rosalie Gunawan. Production of this video podcast special series is supported by Adrian Ma and Haley Sang-Savan. Videography is by Wakefield Agency and Elwin Xie. The theme music and original audio was created by Joshua Young, and graphic design is by Studio Pian Pian He and Max Harvey. Stay tuned for the next episode of The Schoolroom, available wherever you get your podcasts.